Hey everyone, this is Dr. Neal. Today we're on the couch talking a little bit about anxiety and depression. I'd like to emphasize today that anxiety, depression, and any imbalance of the mood tends to be the default pathway for anyone who is not actively taking care of their mind. It's similar to being out of shape in the body. If you're not actively doing things daily to help your mind stay safe and stay balanced, the default pathway will be for your mind to fall out of balance as you get older. Now, this imbalance can take place anytime in your childhood or adulthood, but what's most important in my opinion is that not to look at it as a diagnosis. I think the psychiatric diagnoses of depression and anxiety and bipolar and schizophrenic and panic attacks and mood disorders, all these diagnoses tend to be so stigmatizing that they create hopelessness and another emotional reaction due to the new label. And so let's get rid of these labels today. If you're angsty or slightly melancholy or a little bit depressed, this is common for all human beings who are not taking care of their mind. And know that while diagnoses for these problems bring forth some consciousness and some awareness, they also bring forth stigmatizing labels that I tend to avoid in my practice. Instead, I may call it, instead of anxiety, I might call it angst. Or instead of depression, I might just say a little, a little depressed or a little melancholy. The language can make a big difference. Let's talk about the concept that all human beings, if not maintaining their mental health, will become imbalanced in the mind. And they will be either slightly depressed or slightly anxious, or both. Anxiety and depression tend to come as one, and to separate them, in my opinion, misses the boat. The tricky thing about anxiety and depression is that it creeps up on you. Unlike gaining weight, where you can step on the scale and see every pound that either comes or goes, anxiety or depression is much more elusive to evaluate. It can creep into your being, get into your soul, get into your mind, and you don't even know it's there until it's festering big enough to where you either lash out or act out in an off-putting way, or react to something that maybe you shouldn't have reacted so much to, or maybe you just finally realize you're anxious or depressed when it's very serious, when you're incapacitated and can't go to work or school. That's what makes this conversation important. Let's start to get the awareness and the conversation of anxiety and depression as the default for anyone who is not actively taking care of their mind. So, how do you actively take care of your mind? Obviously, being social with people who have positive energy is a good way to maintain your emotional and mental health. Physical activity is obviously needed to maintain the whole body, and the mind and the brain is part of the body. So, if you're sitting on the couch for too long, or if you're sitting at work too long, or if you're sitting in general for a time that's significantly higher than the number of hours that you're moving or working out or playing sports, you can expect to get a little bit anxious or depressed just from this loss of fitness in the mind. Unlike the body, where you can maybe look in the mirror or check the scale, your angst or depression will creep up on you until it hits a point that becomes intolerable for either yourself or for others. So I'm just making this video to eliminate the stigmatizing diagnoses of Western medicine's psychiatric unit. Those diagnoses were created a long time ago to help doctors understand what was going on with patients who were reacting in severe ways. Now that we understand these concepts and we're beyond that original invention of the word depression, let's now get rid of them. We no longer need those words, and let's just call it mentally and emotionally out of balance. If you're having anxiety, you're out of balance. If you're having depression, you're out of balance. This conversation also brings up the topic of taking prescription medications for your anxiety or depression. And for this, if someone were to ask me, my answer is split. All the antidepressant medications, which also has proven work on anxiety as well, are helpful. If you look back at the clinical data and you look back at all the people who have taken them, you will see they've had a positive influence on our society. They've helped people get out of a rut, and then many people have been able to get off them. However, other people have never been able to get off them, and I believe the reason they've never been able to get off them is because the conversation is missing some key components. When someone goes on antidepressant medications, it should be thought of as a booster seat or a turbo boost to get someone alive and awake enough to start taking care of themselves. If it's used as a crutch and they never change their lifestyle or change their physical activity or change their social interaction, then they will be used for the rest of someone's life. However, if someone uses these medications just to lift themselves to a point where they can then get to the gym and become ultra fit, then we would say clinically that those medications have helped. And so my opinion is not to be extreme when it comes to taking oral medications or not taking oral medications. The key is to dial it in so you know what's good about them and what's bad about them. Now, all that being said, there's many ways to drive yourself out of the hole. Sometimes the medications just do it in a turbo, in a fast way that gets people going. But there's many ways to pull out of the hole, not just medications. In my opinion, cardiovascular fitness at its highest level is the most powerful one. But if you're already an Olympic athlete and still depressed, obviously there's others as well. And they would be more related to dealing with prior trauma, changing your social relationships around you, making sure you're around positive people. Maybe you're ultra fit, but you need to bring down the energy a little bit in some yoga. So the combination of calming the mind versus stimulating the mind, that's sometimes one of the balances that everyone needs to work on. So that's all. I just wanted to make a video today, bringing forth the awareness that anxiety and depression are no longer medical diagnoses or stigmatizing labels in my mind, and in many people's minds anymore. They're just a sign that we're a little bit out of balance and that we need to get back in balance. While we're hanging out today, I'd like to share with you a song I wrote when my mind was not in perfect balance and I was living in New York, and I kind of had a little bit of that feeling of escapism or wanting to get out of New York, maybe attributing my unwellness to New York. But we all know that those who blame their city for their unwellness are not really taking accountability for what they're doing for their own mental hygiene and what they're doing day to day to make themselves feel better. So I'd like to share this song with you that is about escapism. This song is called Northbound. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed that a little bit.